Hello and welcome to Nan Loves Food. I'm Ann here today with meal number 3 of our February meal prep and plan with me series. So super excited about this one today. It's gonna be really easy, really simple. It's gonna come together super fast. We are doing a steak gorgonzola with creamy Alfredo sauce. Yum. It is horrifically cold outside here in Indiana. It is 12 degrees today as I am filming this, and I need some nice warm carbs in my belly. So let's get started. So I already have my pot of boiling water going back here. I'm gonna get the water nice and salty. Adding salt to the pasta water. One of the reasons I picked this recipe for this month's menu is, first of all, there are a couple of things that I really like about it. The only vegetable we're using is spinach. Spinach is super easy because it comes pre-washed in these baggies. So that is an automatic win for weeknight cooking to begin with. Super easy. We're also using these little sun-dried tomatoes. Now the recipe specifically calls for sun-dried tomatoes packed in oil, but my store was out of those. And I particularly like that these are already cut up, so I don't even have to do any additional cutting there. So very happy to have this brand. They just had these at my local Walmart. So this recipe had specifically called for filet mignon, but I had this New York strip in my freezer that needed to get used up, so that's what we're gonna use today. Because we're using it in pasta, I'm gonna go ahead and just trim off this little bit of fat on the side, because I don't think that'll be particularly pleasant to eat in a pasta dish. The recipe specifically says to cut into pieces that would be a 3 or 4 bite piece. I don't want to do that because I don't want to have to cut steak in my pasta. That doesn't sound like a pleasant way to eat it. That might be how they do it at Olive Garden, but I'm not doing this because it's an Olive Garden copycat. I'm doing it because it sounded good. So I'm not worried about authenticity here, especially authenticity to Olive Garden. It's the nice thing about cooking in your own kitchen is you can customize it and have things as you would like them. So I'm just going to cut this up into bite-size-ish pieces, maybe slightly bigger than bite-size. I'm gonna take some paper towel and just pat this dry. It's a little damp, it was frozen, and I just don't want any excess moisture on this if I don't have to have it. That will make sure that I get a good sear on these steak bites, which means we'll get the most flavor because we've got a good bit of caramelization happening. My water is boiling back here, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in pasta. I'm using a whole wheat linguine. So that's gonna take about 10 minutes. I've got the timer started there and we're ready to get started cooking our steak. We are using our handy dandy instant braiser. Certainly you do not need one of these, but I think it's probably a good idea to have a nice deep pan so that you can make sure to have enough room to stir the pasta in the sauce once it's done cooking. All right, we've got some extra virgin olive oil getting hot down there. We're gonna give our steak a good salt and pepper. And I'm just gonna season the one side and then I will pick it up with my tongs. I've washed my hands about 4 times already, and that's not something I wanna get in the business of doing 100 times while I'm cooking. So I really avoid touching raw meat as often as possible, just to save myself an extra hand wash. All right, our pan is nice and hot. We're gonna get a good sear on the steak. All right, we've gotten some really nice color on our steak. So I'm gonna take this out of here and our steak is all done. All right, as this recipe is written, it calls for literally 4 separate pans. In the game of weeknight cooking, we do not use that many pans ever. That is not, not okay with me. So we're gonna reduce down to 2 by buying and not making our balsamic glaze. The other way we're gonna reduce is by just cleaning this one out with a little bit of paper towel. We got most of the gunky off there, and this is totally fine to make our sauce in. I'm just gonna get the little bits out of here and we'll reuse this. It'll be just fine to make the sauce. All right, so next step is to make the sauce, and then we're basically done. While I was cooking the steak, the pasta finished cooking, so that is already drained and off the stove, no big deal there. I did set aside some of the pasta water in case we want to thin out some of our sauce later. But for right now, we got a stick of butter going in the pan. This one's nice and easy to remember. It's a stick of butter, a cup of whipping cream, and a cup of parm with some garlic in it. I'm very into freeze-dried garlic lately. It's got really good flavor, and I think I don't know, I just like it a little bit better than traditional powdered. So we're gonna use that to flavor our sauce. Because we are using cheese and salted butter, I'm gonna hold off on salting this at all until I know for sure that we need it. Okay, my butter is just about melted. Ooh, that garlic is so fragrant and delicious smelling. Getting a little bit of brown on that garlic, which I love. So this is a 16-ounce container of heavy whipping cream. If we do half, that's 8 ounces, which is a cup, which is what the recipe calls for. Now, I generally don't follow recipes. I just like to use them as guidelines, but for something like a sauce like this, it's good to use at least the approximate measurements and then just adjust if you need to. Like if it's a little runny, I'll add a little bit extra cheese. If it's a little too thick, we'll add a little bit of extra either cream or water or maybe the pasta water to thin it out a little bit. I'm not using Parmesan, I'm actually using this super delicious Pecorino Romano. We have been hooked on this lately and absolutely love, especially this brand. Not sponsored. We're just gonna let this cook down for a few minutes, which it will thicken up. I'm gonna keep stirring it just so we don't have any milk burn on the bottom. One thing to remember about pasta sauce is that it will always get a little thicker than it is on the stove. It's always gonna tighten up a little bit once you take it off the heat. So just keep that in mind. This looks about where I want it. I'm gonna give it a taste test for salt, make sure I like the direction we're headed in. Okay, our sauce is looking really good. Time to add 2 cups of spinach. And we can watch the magic of spinach happen. It reduces so much, it's crazy. Adding in our noodles. So between the water and the spinach, and there was some water in the pasta, it looks a little thin to me, so I'm gonna add just a little bit more cheese, and then I think we are good to go. That's one of the reasons I don't often follow recipes to the T, is because even if you do follow them to the T, you know, sometimes you get a little extra pasta water in your sauce, or, you know, things just happen that make it so it's not exactly kind of as the recipe author intended. Either that or, you know, the person who wrote the recipe didn't test it very well, which happens too, especially in this world of the internet where, you know, anybody can start a food blog. You know, you have to be able to adjust on the fly, and you really can. It just takes a couple of tricks here and there, you know, to know how to thicken up a sauce or to loosen it back up. And even if I let this sit here too long, it's gonna tighten up, you know, so I might wanna loosen it up after that. So, you know, just having tricks up your sleeve like a little bit of pasta water or a little extra cheese can make all the difference in the world in your cooking. All right, so here's my beautiful plate of pasta. I'm gonna come back in with my little steak bits here. One of the reasons I really liked this recipe is because it kind of allows for picky eaters, with the exception of the spinach. You could cook the spinach separately, I suppose. But if you have picky eaters at home like I do, you could totally stop here. This is pasta with fettuccine and some spinach. That's pretty inoffensive. And I can understand how picky eaters might not love our sun-dried tomatoes and gorgonzola cheese and balsamic glaze, but I do. So we're definitely adding them in. So here are my sun-dried tomatoes. I'm just gonna sprinkle some of those on top. We have gorgonzola cheese crumbles. Again, just a little sprinkle on there. Oh man, is this beautiful. I love pretty food. Tasty's #1, but pretty is awfully nice. Here's our packaged balsamic glaze. Yes, I know I can make this. No, I do not want to. It is a weeknight. I am tired, and I just want a delicious meal. And this, my friends, qualifies. Yum. This is seriously the most beautiful dish I've made in a while. It's so pretty. All right, that sauce tightened up just like we wanted to. It's clinging to the noodles beautifully. Oh my gosh, you guys. This is so good. So the only criticism that I have is that I do think I'm gonna have to like stir it up because I want that gorgonzola like in there. You know, it definitely, it looks beautiful on top, but I want it mixed in and I want the flavors all together. But that is absolutely delicious. As always, the recipe will be in the description box down below. And if you haven't already, make sure you are signed up over at nanlovesfood.com/meal prep, where you can get everything we cook this week, including a shopping list, a step-by-step guide for prep, and step-by-step guide for actually cooking these beautiful, delicious weeknight meals. This one only really took about 15-20 minutes. The steak cooked so quickly and that sauce came together in no time at all. So if you take little hacks like the balsamic glaze and somebody else cutting up and washing your produce, that makes life super easy. And those are the types of things that can make weeknight cooking sustainable. Something that you can do every week for your family and not feel totally overwhelmed by. I know that people can have a lot of feelings and guilt around not doing everything totally from scratch, but listen, this is a delicious home-cooked meal. It totally counts. You totally get credit. You get credit for your mac and cheese from a box, and you get credit for delicious dishes like this, and you get credit for, you know, meals that take 12 hours to make or whatever. It all counts. It's all feeding your family, the people you love. That's what matters the most. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.